In this video, we're going to look at the top 5 most common questions that are asked in CVS interviews, and I'm going to help you plan fantastic answers that are going to land you a job working with CVS. So let's start with a question that comes up in every CVS interview, which is simply a question around what hours can you work, and they are very, very interested in the answer to this. And if you don't answer this question well, it is unlikely that you will get a job. So pay attention. I'm going to show you a method to answer this question that really gets managers interested. So the first thing you're going to show off is as much flexibility as possible. You're going to try and avoid saying no to things, and you're going to show that you can do this, or you can do this, or you can do this. You're going to be listing lots of different times. You're going to show that you're dedicated by showing that flexibility and by not saying no to loads of times. Because if you go about this question by immediately starting to say the times that you can't work, that is going to lose you the job. The last thing you're going to do is you're going to show that you're reliable, and saying phrases like, I can work on short notice, or I can rearrange things, and I can plan my life around this job. That's going to get them really interested. They want to show that they are employing someone that is adaptable and that is going to meet the business needs. That's the whole point of the interview process. And some ways to show that you're meeting the business's needs is by stating the things that they love to hear. So if you can work evenings, so that's after 5 o'clock, they are somewhat more difficult to staff. Weekends, especially Saturdays, is a really great time to mention. That's where the pharmacies tend to be busy. And also people would quite like to have a Saturday off. So if you're saying, I'm happy to work Saturdays, boom, you've got their interest. School holidays, should you be able to work those, definitely mention it. That's a great positive. If you have childcare commitments and that's a problem, the key is just don't mention it. Don't volunteer any information on this question ever. Don't ever say that you can't work a time. You want them to specifically ask you about that. And the chances are, once you've said all the times that you can work and you've said all these things that they love to hear, they're going to move on to the next question and they're never going to know about it. So the secret to success on this question is talking endlessly about what you can do and never mentioning the times you can't do. Just let them bring it up. Don't volunteer times that you can't do, and you will be massively successful in this question. Let's move on to the next question, which is a question around your knowledge. So what can you tell me about CVS? It may not come up exactly in this format, but if you're not asked explicitly what you know about the company, there is going to be loads of opportunities throughout the interview to show off your knowledge, and that is going to get them interested because it's showing that you've done lots of preparation. And you can link this to loads of different varieties of questions. So one thing that I think is a great fact to know about is that they stopped the sales of tobacco. So they are leading the industry in that. They're the first big pharmacy chain in the US to just put a stop to that. CVS actually stands for convenience, value, and service. That's a great fact. You can talk about their takeover, that you can go way back and say that it originates with the Melville Shoe Corporation. And these are things that not a lot of people know. So if you're asked this question, mentioning those sort of things makes you stand out. So the way that you should be planning this question is that bad answers are things that everyone knows. The obvious things, that CVS is a pharmacy chain and talking about what pharmacies do, that's a basic thing. It's a good start. But you want to move into some things that only some people know, and then talking about some things that only very, very few people know, like what CVS stands for and its history going back to 1963. That is massively impressive. And the other thing to be aware of is that fact about stopping tobacco sales. That can apply to loads of different questions, like why do you want to work here? You could also talk about how it's leading and that it's improving people's health. And an example of that is that they stopped tobacco sales. So you can link this to loads of questions. So do your research and memorize the things on that slide. And these are great things to drip in throughout the interview. So let's move on to my top tip, which is to make sure you read CVS Caremark Form 10K. So Google that and you will get the annual report of the company, which has got more information than you can possibly imagine. If you've read that, you're going to stand out a mile because you're going to have such fantastic knowledge of the company. So definitely do that. That is fantastic interview preparation. So let's look at another question that comes up all the time in retail interviews, which is how would you handle a rude and abusive customer? And when you are working in CVS, this is something that is likely to come up, and hence why they tend to ask about it. The first phrase you're going to use is calm and composed. You're always going to remain calm. The next thing you want to make very clear in your answer is that you always follow the company's policy. Just because someone is angry and abusive does not mean that they are going to get a refund on something they're not entitled to. So you're always going to stick to the company's policy, and you're not going to make up your own policy. So you're going to be aware of what the company policy is, and that is what you're going to stick to. But you're going to do that with some empathy. And the most important phrase, and if you simply say this word, that reassures your interviewer you know what you're talking about. And that is the phrase de-escalate. So you're going to bring the situation down, under control, calm everything down, and have a rational, calm, composed conversation with the customer. And you're going to basically get rid of that shouting and screaming by being calm and professional, and make the customer feel that they are being listened to. And if you do that, that's going to get the situation under control. And if you're using phrases like calm and composed, you're mentioning the company's policies, and you use the phrase de-escalate, they're going to score you very highly on this question, and you're going to be successful. Next question, why do you want to work at CVS Pharmacy? And there's loads of different reasons, and I've given you lots of suggestions. So if we go through these, so very interested in healthcare, great start. You can talk about the research that you've done. So find out about how the company invests in its staff, what training is available. You can talk about people that you know that have worked in the company, and how people have moved from working on the till to as a cashier perhaps, to moving up to management, and that there is great scope for a long-term career. This is also a fantastic question to link your skills. So you can say things like, my skills and previous experience make me a great match for CVS. So talk about what you've done in the past and your previous jobs, and how that links to what you're doing here. You can talk about enjoying working with customers and meeting people, which is a key part of the role. And so you're reassuring them as well that you want to work here because you're going to be good at working here, and the job that you're doing here is what you want to be doing. That's what you've got to get across in the question. And linking it to a long-term career is also reassuring, because the hiring manager would rather not be doing a million interviews. They'd rather just hire people that are good and stick around. So if you're reassuring them that you're interested in being with CVS Pharmacy for a long time, that's a big tick in your favor. So have a look through these bubbles, pick a couple of them, and talk about these in your interview, and that'll help you pass this question and score highly. Let's look at the last question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Simple question, often very badly answered. So there is a good answer on the left and a bad answer on the right. So you're going to first make sure that the place where you're going to be in 5 years' time is going to be reasonable. So you don't want to be talking about being chief executive in 5 years. That's not particularly likely. You're going to be sensitive to the person that is interviewing you. So you don't want to be saying that in 5 years' time, you're going to be 2 levels above the person interviewing you, because that's quite insulting. So you're going to be sensitive to who's interviewing you. So if it's a manager, you might not want to talk about being an area manager, or even perhaps being a manager, because it might take them 10 years to get to there, and you're trying to do it in 5. So be conscious of the person that's interviewing you, and you want to focus on the development. So what training are you going to get at CVS? You can talk about the opportunity to shadow people, and you're going to learn from people that are already in the job to earn your way there. The worst thing you can say is that you're going to quit CVS, talk about it as a temporary job, insult your interviewer by talking about being a level above them, basically saying in 5 years' time, I will be your boss. Terrible answer. And not talking about what CVS offers, so the training and the opportunities that CVS specifically is providing, is a great way to fail this question. So last thing, bonus, here is some suggestions of great questions that you can ask. If you don't ask questions at the end of your interview, it is very, very, very negative. So memorize a couple of these. I would suggest having at least 3 questions memorized. The one in the bottom left is a particularly good one. So asking, how would you describe a highly effective CVS pharmacy employee? This is a fabulous opportunity for them to say the best employees are ones that do this, 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 and this. And then you can just come back with, I do all of these things, and give some examples of how you meet what they describe as a great employee. And that's a great way of ending the interview on a positive note and reminding them of all these skills that you're going to bring. And lastly, make sure one of the questions that you ask directly relates to something that's came up in the interview. So you're showing that you're listening and you're engaging in a two-way conversation. So hopefully this video has been very helpful to you. I wish you the best of luck in your CVS interview, and thank you very much for watching.